The afternoon sun hung low over the sprawling backyard of my modest Seattle home, casting long shadows across the uneven rows of marigolds I'd been coaxing back to life. My hands were buried in the cool, damp soil, the earthy scent mingling with the faint tang of sweat on my skin. It was April 7, 2025, a day that started ordinary enough until the phone rang for the third time. I ignored the first two calls, assuming they were spam, or yet another distant cousin fishing for gossip. But the third time something shifted in the air, a quiet warning I couldn't shake. Wiping my dirt-streaked hands on my jeans, I pulled the phone from my pocket. The screen read "Unknown caller." And when I answered, a voice I'd never heard before sliced through the stillness like a blade. "Miss Elena Grayson, this is Victor Hensley, attorney for Ms. Lillian Marrow. I'm sorry to inform you that your aunt passed away last night." The words hit me like a physical blow, stealing the breath from my lungs. I sank to my knees beside the marigolds, the phone trembling against my ear. Aunt Lillian gone. The woman who'd been my anchor, my confidant. The one who'd seen me when the rest of my family looked through me. She wasn't just an aunt. She was the heartbeat of every memory that mattered. The stranger's voice, calm, measured, almost rehearsed, continued, oblivious to the chaos erupting inside me. She passed peacefully in her sleep. She left specific instructions for me to contact you first, before anyone else in the family. "There's a letter for you, Grayson," one she insisted you read privately before her funeral. A letter. My mind spun, grasping at fragments of the past. Lillian's sly smile as she handed me caramel candies during tense family dinners, her lessons on resilience scribbled on napkins she'd tuck into my coat pocket. "Elena, the world's a forge," she'd once said, her voice low and fierce. "It'll try to hammer you flat, but you've got to hold the hammer yourself." And now she was gone, leaving me with a letter and a void I couldn't comprehend. "I'll be there within the hour," I heard myself say, my voice sounding distant, like it belonged to someone else. Victor Hensley's office was in a sleek high-rise in downtown Seattle, all glass and steel, a world away from the muddy chaos of my garden. The elevator ride to the 14th floor felt endless, the mirrored walls reflecting a woman I barely recognized, pale, dirt-smudged, eyes wide with shock. When I stepped into his office, Victor stood to greet me. Mid-50s, sharp suit, silver streaks in his dark hair had the polished air of a man who'd seen too many secrets to be rattled by them. "Thank you for coming so quickly," he said, his handshake firm but gentle. "I didn't want to delay anything related to Lillian." "I wouldn't have delayed it either," I replied, forcing my voice steady. "You said there's a letter?" He nodded, sliding two envelopes across his polished oak desk. One was large, stamped with the Hensley Va Pratt logo. The other was smaller, cream-colored, my name Elena Grayson written in Lillian's elegant, looping script. I lifted it, catching a faint whiff of her signature scent. Cedarwood and orange blossom. My chest tightened. "She asked that you read this alone first," Victor said. "Then we'll discuss the rest." I tore it open, hands shaking, and unfolded the thick paper inside. Her words stared back at me, sharp and alive. "My dearest Elena, if you're reading this, I've run out of time. Don't mourn me too long. I lived exactly as I wanted, no regrets. But I've got one last request, and it's not a small one. No one else can do this but you. At my funeral, you'll need to read a letter that'll turn everything upside down. It's hidden in the secret drawer of the ebony jewelry box I showed you how to open when you were 12. Remember? The one your Uncle Richard called gaudy trash? Some might call what I'm asking revenge. I call it justice, overdue but essential. I'm levying everything to you, the estate, the company shares, the properties, but only if you fulfill this condition." Read that letter aloud in front of the whole family, no exceptions. "I trust you because you're the only one who sees through their greed, the only one who knows right from wrong. Oh, and Elena, don't let them bury me in anything pastel. I'd rather haunt them than wear lilac. With all my love. Lillian." I read it 3 times, each pass tightening the knot in my throat. "Everything. To me?" Victor cleared his throat, pulling me back. "She left you the entirety of her estate, estimated at $72 million, including controlling shares in Marrowtech, real estate, and personal assets. There are minor bequests for others, but the bulk is yours if you agree to her terms. $72 million. The number echoed like a gunshot in my skull. My family, Uncle Richard, Aunt Margot, my cousins, they'd lose their minds. But it wasn't the money choking me. It was the question clawing at my brain. What was Lillian hiding? And why me, the niece they'd always dismissed as the oddball, the one who'd rather teach history at a community college than climb the corporate ladder? Lillian's house perched on a bluff overlooking Puget Sound, its weathered cedar siding and mossy roof, a testament to decades of stubborn endurance. I hadn't been back in over a year, not since she'd scolded me for letting my roots grow too shallow. You're tougher than you think, Elena, but you've got to stop hiding in that classroom. Now, as I pushed open the rusted iron gate, the creak sounded like a cry. The air was thick with salt and pine, and the silence inside was deafening. No hum of the old radio she loved, no clatter of her housekeeper, Mrs. Ortiz, bustling about. Just me and the ghosts of a life abruptly ended. I used the key she'd given me on my 25th birthday, tucked into a velvet pouch with a note. For when they try to lock you out. The door groaned open, and the faint scent of cedarwood lingered, a whisper of her presence. I didn't bother with the lights. The fading sunset spilled through the stained glass windows, painting the hardwood floor in hues of amber and blue. Upstairs, her bedroom was a time capsule, navy drapes, a crooked photo of us at the beach, and there on the vanity the ebony jewelry box. Its carved VY nest glinted in the dim light, and my pulse quickened as I sat on the velvet stool. I traced the carvoanges, my fingers finding the fifth leaf from the right, the trigger she'd shown me all those years ago. A soft click, and a hidden drawer slid open, revealing a heavy navy blue envelope. To be opened at the funeral in front of the entire family, her handwriting declared. Beneath it, something else, a small, cold object wrapped in tissue. I peeled it back to find a silver key, its edges worn smooth, and a tiny note. For the safe in the study. You'll know when. My breath caught. What the hell had she been planning? The next few days were a storm of noise. My phone buzzed incessantly, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, their voices dripping with fake concern or thinly veiled panic. Elena, how are you holding up? Did Lillian say anything about the will? I gave them nothing, my silence a shield. The funeral was set for St. Cecilia's, a stone church nestled among evergreens, and I arrived in a simple black blazer, a sprig of rosemary pinned to my lapel, her favorite herb, not a flower in sight. The pews were packed with family, colleagues, and a few strangers in expensive suits who eyed me like vultures. Uncle Richard, my father's older brother, stood at the front, his jaw tight, while Aunt Margot, Lillian's younger sister, dabbed at dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. My cousins, Trevor and Lila, whispered to each other, their glances sharp as knives. Victor approached me as the priest finished his eulogy. It's time, Elena, he murmured. She wanted it read now, before anyone leaves. I nodded, the envelope in my purse a lead weight. The church fell silent as I stepped to the podium, my boots echoing against the stone floor. I broke the wax seal, a sprig of rosemary embossed in red, and unfolded the letter, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. My name is Elena Grayson. My aunt, Lillian Marrow, asked me to read this letter at her funeral, in front of you all. I'm honoring her wish. I took a breath, then began. Dearest Elena, if you're standing there, you've found the strength I always knew you had. You're holding the truth I've kept buried for over 40 years, not out of cowardice, but because I needed the right person to wield it. Marotech wasn't mine alone. It began with two of us, me and James Keller, my partner, my friend, the brilliant mind behind the biosynthetic polymers that built the company. James died in a plane crash in 1984 or so, they said. But he didn't die by accident. He was murdered. A collective gasp rippled through the room. I heard a pew creak, a muffled sob. Pressed on. The day James died, his shares, half of Marotech, were transferred to my brother, Richard Grayson, your uncle. The documents claimed James signed them over willingly, but he didn't. The signature was forged. I have proof, handwriting analysis, flight logs, a mechanic's report showing the plane's fuel line was tampered with. I stayed silent because Marotech was fragile then, a startup on the brink. Exposing the truth would have destroyed it and thousands of jobs with it. But now it's strong enough to bear this weight. That's why I'm levying everything to you, Elena, the only one not corrupted by this family's greed. I paused, lifting my eyes to the crowd. Uncle Richard's face was ashen, his hands clenched into fists. Aunt Margot's handkerchief froze mid-air. Trevor stood, his mouth open but no words came. She left me her shares worth $72 million on one condition, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. That I reveal this truth to you all. And I have. But I wasn't done. In my bag was Moria leather pouch stuffed with documents and photos. I pulled out the first. A grainy black and white shot of James Keller, lean and intense, standing beside Lillian in a lab coat. This is James, I said, holding it up. Co-founder of Merotech, creator of the polymer tech that made it a giant. The second photo, James and Lillian signing a contract, 50-50 ownership, scrawled across the top. The third, a yellowed forensic report, its conclusion stark. Signature on transfer document does not match James Keller's known handwriting. The church erupted, shouts, gasps, a glass shattering somewhere in the back. I held up the mechanics report next. James's plane didn't crash by chance. The fuel line was cut deliberately. And 4 hours later, Richard Grayson filed the transfer, claiming full ownership. I turned to my uncle. You forged it, didn't you? His eyes met mine, wild and hollow. You don't know what you're talking about, he rasped, but his voice cracked, betraying him. Aunt Margot surged to her feet, her purse hitting the floor with a thud. This is slander. You're a liar, Elena. Nobody trying to steal what's ours. I'm not stealing, I shot back, my gaze unwavering. I'm uncovering what you buried. I pulled out Lillian's amended will, reading aloud. All assets and shares go to Elena Grayson, with a fund established in James Keller's name for biotech innovation. This is justice, not theft. The room fell silent, a suffocating stillness. Richard slumped in his pew, defeated. Margot stormed out, her heels clacking like gunfire. Trevor and Lila stared at me, their arrogance replaced by fear. Reporters swarmed as the cerveau ended, their cameras flashing like lightning. Will you press charges? What's next for Merotech? I faced them, calm and resolute. I won't run from this. I won't stay silent. And I won't let a company built on betrayal stand as it is. That night, back at Lillian's estate, I sat in her study, the silver key from the jewelry box in my hand. The safe was behind a false panel in the bookshelf shown me once, laughing about old spy tricks. I turned the key and the door clicked open, revealing a steel box. Inside, a stack of letters, a faded photo of Lillian with a young woman I didn't recognize, and a note in her handwriting. Find Olivia Keller. She's James's daughter. She deserves the truth and her share. My heart stopped. Olivia Keller. A daughter? The photo showed a woman in her late 20s, dark hair, sharp green eyes, James's eyes. On the back, Lillian had written, "She doesn't know. I funded her education, MIT, then Stanford. Tell her, Elena. She's the missing piece." The next morning I tracked Olivia down. She was speaking at a biotech symposium in San Francisco, presenting a breakthrough in self-regulating nanocoatings. I watched from the back of the auditorium, her voice commanding the room, her presence electric. She had no idea who she was, not fully. After her talk, I approached, my business card in hand. "I'm Elena Grayson," I said, meeting her guarded gaze. "I have a story about your father you need to hear." Her eyes narrowed, but she nodded. We met later at a cramped cafe near the bay, the air thick with espresso and sea salt. I slid a folder across the table, copies of the contract, the crash report, Lillian's payments to an anonymous trust that had funded her life. She flipped through it, her hands trembling, her face a mask of disbelief going way to rage. "This can't be true," she whispered. "My mom said my dad left us some deadbeat who couldn't handle responsibility. I took her name, Keller, because I thought he didn't want me." "He didn't leave," I said softly. "He was taken. James Keller was a genius, Olivia. He built Merotech with Lillian until my uncle killed him for it." Her breath hitched. "Why didn't Lillian tell me?" "She couldn't, not then. The company would have collapsed. But she never forgot you. She left you 35 Fantram of Merotech's shares, and me the rest, to fix what was broken." Olivia stared at the will, her voice barely audible. "What do you want from me?" "I want us to lead it together," I said. "Not for power, but to make it what James and Lillian intended: innovative, honest, real. She didn't answer right away, but 3 days later, she walked into Maroteca's headquarters beside me. The lobby buzzed with whispers: employees, shareholders, board members watching this stranger with James Keller's eyes. I called a press conference that week, standing with Ali Viwaya under blinding lights. Marotech began with 2 VY cyaneries, I said. James Keller and Lillian Marrow. Today we right a wrong. This is Ali Viwaya Keller, James's daughter, my partner, and our new CTO. The fallout was seismic. Some shareholders balked, threatening to sell. Others, especially the engineers who'd revered James's patents, cheered. Ali Viwaya threw herself into the work, redesigning the R&D wing into a hub of open innovation. I fired 2 board members tied to Richard's old schemes, released a transparent audit, and moved my office to the lab floor. We didn't just restructure or resurrect it. 6 months later, Ali Viwaya's nanocoating tech won a $200 million contract with the Department of Energy, and Maroteca's stock soared 20 fantram. The press stopped mocking us, the teacher and the scientist, and started listening. Richard vanished after the funeral, resurfacing months later in a detox clinic in Tacoma. He checked himself in, broken by guilt or shame, mentioning only my name to the staff. I didn't VY sit not out of spite, but because he'd chosen his penance and I had mine to carry. Ali Vya and I planted a rosemary bush at Lillian's estate on the 1st anniversary of her death. A quiet ceremony with a plaque. For James and Lillian, truth endures. That night I found a letter from Richard in my mailbox, his scrawl shaky. Elena, you did what I couldn't. I don't expect forgiveness, just know I'm trying to face it now. I tucked it away, not ready to respond but not willing to forget. A year later, Marotech was named one of the top 50 ethical companies in the U.S. Not first, but enough. In Lillian's library, I wrote her a letter I'd never send, thanking her for trusting me with a burden heavier than gold. The truth hadn't destroyed Use It had forged us anew. And in the garden, under a late winter sky, a new rosemary sprig pushed through the frost, proving beauty could indeed rise from pain.